Hey everyone, how's it going? Juan Dhas here, and today's lesson I want to talk about melodic minor. This video has been a long time coming. It's something I get asked about every now and then through messages on Facebook or Instagram, and I figured, now's a good time to really cover it, but rather than get into some of the functions and how I would use it, harmonically speaking, I may do that for next week's video. Before we get into it, I want to jump into melodic minor and how to really begin internalizing it and some kind of pitfalls to avoid and pointers to keep in mind when you're working on the scale to try get it feeling a little more natural. I think that tends to be more of a principal issue than actually learning language for melodic minor. It's more so just making the scale feel good and feel natural. As it is, melodic minor is a pretty, I wouldn't say it's an unused or rare scale because it is slowly becoming more and more common, and it always has been pretty common in the jazz sphere. But very few of us have a mental picture or mental snapshot, if you will, of the scale. So that's stuff we have to work on as we're working through internalizing it. So before we get into the lesson, I do also want to say I have more workshops coming up. This week and next week is going to be based around reharm techniques. So if you'd like to be a part of the workshop, write me a message through Facebook or Instagram, or write me an email, and I'll be happy to help you out with anything. So, shameless plug out of the way. Let's get into the lesson. Now, when it comes to melodic minor, the first step I always tell students, or that I always really try and impress upon people, is put in the fundamental work of spending time with the scale. Spending time with the scale doesn't just mean running through one position up and down. It doesn't mean doing the same thing with all the other positions, but actually gets into some of the stuff I talked about in my How to Practice Scales lesson. Can you connect the scales? So go up one, and so on through the other positions of the scale. Can you play a scale in intervals? Can you do it in fourths? Can you do it in fifths? Can you do it in sixths? Sevenths even? Can you play the same key but starting from different positions? Oh, I need to work on that, evidently. There it is. Ah. So see, this is some fundamental stuff that I have to work on. And this is stuff that you constantly have to keep revisiting, no matter what stage of development you're at. So can you start from different positions of the scale? Can you move through the entire range of the instrument? Can you put it in different keys? So same thing, F melodic minor. How about C melodic minor? And so on and so forth. So that way you're testing to see whether you really have the scale under your fingers or not. And this actually begins to inform your ears, your inner ear. Essentially, because as you play through these exercises, what I recommend is singing them, or singing through it. If you play a scale, or same thing in thirds. You don't have to be an amazing singer, you just need to be able to intonate to some degree or another and be able to hit the note you're playing. But over time, this will slowly integrate itself into your playing, into yourself. And you start to develop a little more of an intimate understanding of the scale. And this is the root or the foundation for really being able to access the scale in the moment. You can understand the functions, you can understand superimpositions, or how to play certain triads over certain chords to get a sound, but if you can't hear the sound in the first place, or you can't play the sound, then it's all for naught. So really, this is vital, absolutely vital and absolutely fundamental. Please start with integrating the sound. It's not a sound we hear every day. It's not a sound we're exposed to very early on, unless you've been introduced to jazz very early on in your development, or music that utilizes melodic minor. So spend some time and really get to know the scale. And this leads me to my next point. Understand the basic functions or the basic applications. So for example, that would be understanding if I have a 5 chord, let's say 5-1, I can play altered, or I can play mixo flat 13. There it is. So I can use those two options, right? Or if I see a 7 sharp 11 chord, then I can use Lydian flat 7. And understanding that that works for some modal interchange chords. Or if I see melodic minor, then understanding, or minor major 7, or major 7 sharp 5, I can use melodic minor, I can use Lydian sharp 5, right? These are all the sounds that are available. And then, yes, there's Dorian flat 2, Locrian natural 9, respectively. So, now the reason for understanding this isn't to say that every time you see one of these chords you can plug the scale in there. It's more so understanding this as a tool to begin using the scale. And because these are tried and tested, these are what are regularly taught, we can then begin applying these, or applying the sound right away. So there's a little guesswork involved. After you've established the boundaries or the framework where the scale can work, then start getting creative with it. Then start putting your own spin, experimenting with your own phrasing. But in the beginning, we have to build some sort of system, or a grid, if you will. Something where we can say, okay, these are my bounds, these are my limits, and then get creative within the limitation. So understand the core essential functions of where you can use melodic minor. You will be able to start using it sooner than you think. Now we get to my last point, which I think is vital and applies to any scale, but is especially important for this one. I think with melodic minor, a lot of people have the tendency to just run lines with it. At least in the initial stages of playing around with the scale, it is awkward to phrase with the scale because it's a sound we weren't familiar with, as I mentioned before. So the last point I want to stress is try really be musical and create musical phrases that are singable, that can be used within the scale. So if I'm in A-flat melodic minor, for example, crafting small melodies, or crafting melodic cells, like that. And moving that through a key. Now, the cells could be anything. I mean, we could even take ideas like this, right? So that would be minor. Pay attention to the minor third there. Then, and you start opening up to different sounds. That's one option. But really try pay attention to how to create an effective melody with the scale. Try limit articulations where possible. And for example, if you're experimenting with improvising, let's say set yourself a limitation that you can only use I don't know, one melodic cell. Let's say we're only allowed to use that. So then we can move it through the scale. Then try connect multiple instances of that cell. So this really starts forcing us to be a little more creative with the scale, and this is where we can start bringing out interesting ideas. So I hope this lesson was useful for you guys. Next week I will do a more in-depth harmonic breakdown of how I would use melodic minor, or let's say take maybe altered and show you a couple of instances of how I would use it or how I would apply it. So let me know in the comments if that interests you. And as always, if you enjoyed the lesson, please do like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get updates as to when I post new videos. It really helps out the channel a lot. So take care, and I'll see you next time.